Welcome back to the Extraordinary Ed Leader Series. I'm Trish Keiller, founder of Roots Education. I'm so excited to have you joining us today. And in full transparency, as this is pre-recorded, we sit here today really in the wake of the tragedy at Robb Elementary School in Texas. So I say that knowing myself and Zandra, who we have the opportunity to speak with today, our hearts are heavy. Our minds are full and spinning, and it just reminds me, you know, the work that my intention really is to serve schools as hubs of happiness and well-being, and I know that so many of us share that intention, and we feel very far from that space right now. So today I'm really honored. Zandra Jo Galvin is joining us from Greenfield Union School District. She's a superintendent there and has been since, I believe, 2017. Is that right?
Yes.
In education for 26 years. She's a mover and a shaker, and I got to know Zandra through a leadership book chat organized by Dr. Renee Bryant in Anaheim School District. And so I was so drawn to her energy, her enthusiasm. And so I just am so excited to get to share her with you today. So Zandra, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Trish, for having me. And I want to, first of all, just echo just the trauma that's happening today in America. And so we know as it's pre-recorded, we just want to put our hearts and our minds, reach out to Texas and just especially the people in Uvalde, Texas, and just let them know how much we love them and care about them.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, most definitely. And then about today, super honored to be in this space with you and to be able to just share and impact in any way I can. So thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. And you just make time for everything is what I see. I see you on meetings. I see you on LinkedIn. I see you on Twitter. I just sort of see you everywhere. And always looking just like a ball full of energy. So inspiring. And I think that's what we all could use right now as we're sort of digging deep. So let's just kind of begin, you know, the past 2 years and yesterday and today just add on to the experiences that we've had in our school system. What would you say have been really a couple of the highlights of really the biggest learnings, you know, that you've seen in your district and in the field?
Oh, absolutely. So I would say over the last 2 years, one of the most impactful thing that we've walked away with is human connection, and how much that we value human connection. And you don't realize how much that is important until you don't have it. We were all in our homes. We were making decisions to, you know, really support the children, the community, the staff family that we have in one of our organizations. And that connection with people was really missing. And what we're seeing now today is the result of some of those missing connections. The children that I served, their last real school year was 3 years ago. So you can imagine a third grader. It was kindergarten when they had a full year. Then first grade was half of that. Second grade was all, you know, gone. And then now they're back in third grade in our schools. And so they've missed a lot of that socialization. And so we're seeing evidence of that on the playgrounds. We're seeing evidence of that with the socialization that we need to just really support and give them the tools to be able to navigate in this world that is unknown to them because they weren't socialized and be on a playground and in classrooms together. And so for me, huge was the human connection. I missed our kids so much. I missed our adults so much during that time. And so Zoom is all we had to really connect with them. So human connection by far was one of the areas that really taught us a lot about that. And the second one I will say that was so important was emotional intelligence. A lot of us are book smart, right? We go to college. I have a degree. I have this degree. I have that degree. I'm certified to teach a class. I'm certified to run a school, run a district. However, you have to know how to work and interact with people. So that emotional quotient that we needed to tap into was the difference between an organization or a leader that lost connection or failed, and the one who kept that connection and supported the people emotionally. And so I say that because I am wired to be a relationship networker. That's how I'm wired. I'm wired to give you a hug first and then ask your name second. Oh my God, it's so nice to meet
Right.
you.
Through the
You know?
screen, right?
Yes.
Right.
And then like
Yeah.
through the screen, it's like I am just wired to come into a room and try to engage you. And I will find someone who's alone and I try to bring them into the group. Like that's just naturally, whether I know you or I don't know you, I'm going to know you by the time we leave. And so with that emotional side, you have to know how to navigate that. People needed to feel both emotional safety, psychological safety before they met the physical safety. So I could fix my room up, but if I didn't make them know and understand that they were going to be okay, that we were going to get on this journey together and support you, and I'm going to listen in a lot to what your needs are, if that didn't happen, I would have had a different result. And so this is so proud of me to say, I had zero grievances, zero problems. When it came to like people would come and they would voice their opinion, but never in a disrespectful way. They always knew that emotionally we were connected and we were stronger together, we were better together, and we were going to get through this together. And so engaging that connection with support and also just the emotional side made our community just feel that we were going to be responsible and receptive to their needs. Yeah,
Yeah.
big lessons learned. Yeah.
Big, yeah. And I remember, and I can't remember if it was on one of your Twitter feeds, possibly, where you were referencing your staff and I think you had 12 core values, and what was resonating for them was this notion around, we won't let each other fail. Like just that.
Yes.
And so could you speak to that a little bit? Just because I could feel when you're talking about that, I was like, oh yes, that's the value. And that's what people, your staff are saying was supporting them.
Absolutely. So in Greenfield, I've been the superintendent 5 years now. Back on my first year, we created a strategic plan with the vision and a mission for our community, but then we also created core values. So those things that are true to our heart, that our board of trustees initiated, we shared them with all of our staff family, and then they affirmed them and then added a little bit more. And so of those core values, there's about 12 of them. Those are the ones that we hold true to our heart. It's not the action, it's the philosophy behind it. So, for example, what you just shared, one of our core values is we will not let each other fail. Like we just won't. That we're not even negotiating that even happening. And so, with that, what does that mean? It doesn't tell us how we do that. It just means in our heart, if I see Trish is planning a lesson and you're crying because you don't know how to do it, I take that lesson off your plate and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it to our entire grade level because we don't need you to worry about that. We understand you're crying. You probably have a family member that's going through, or you just lost a person to COVID, or you're worried about your rent or whatever it is. Like we don't even ask those questions. We just say, it appears to me that you're struggling. I got you. I will take care of you. And that's the philosophy around we will not let each other fail. And so our teachers did that, our nutrition staff did that, our principal teams did that, our parents did that, our community liaisons helped each other, and collectively everyone rallied around. And then one of the other core values is we will take collective responsibility for the success of the children we serve. Like we will take collective responsibility. And so if a child in your class is struggling, guess what? Let's talk about it and let's see if maybe I can impact him, or a counselor can impact him, or a social worker. Those core values of taking collective responsibility for the success of every child, we will not let each other fail, are just the heart of how we operate in our district. And everyone knows it because we bring them out every meeting that we have, and we talk through them and what citing evidence of what that implementation is. And so with that philosophy and rooting has really influenced our school culture. Every single person on our teams knows those are the things that we abide by, and there's no way that you're not going to be left in. We're not going to leave you somewhere and not support you, or a child, or a family.
Yeah, and it's so interesting when our language is so important, right? And so I could just feel the shift when you said take responsibility for the success, right? Often we go back of like, well, what didn't work, and right, who's to blame, but to own that we're also part of the success, and to highlight that. I love that notion. So I want to ask, because that's such a big thing in terms of of supporting each other and holding that space of vulnerability of I am struggling or I don't, right? This isn't my strength.
Wow.
How do you support your staff and get them there in terms of development or training and obviously your way of being and leading with your heart for sure?
Oh, yeah. So, first and foremost, I think has a lot to do with relationships, emotional connection, first. And so, when I walk through, and I'm in classrooms pretty much every single day of the week, and I want to be there. The only time I'm not is if I'm away at a conference or something. But my first step when I walk into a classroom is, how are you? How's the family? How are you doing? First, because we want to check on their wellness and their social emotional well-being. And then from there, it goes on to, okay, now let's talk to the children and what you're learning and how you plan this lesson and look at what the learning target is and so forth. And so my first lean in is always about that. When people know that you care about them first, genuinely care about them and respond and listen to what they share and then respond to it and don't forget it. And don't forget it. I'm not asking you that question because, I'm not going to listen. I'm going to totally listen. And then later I'm going to ask you, how's the dog you got? How's the new dog? Or whatever that is, because I remember what they shared with me. That goes a really long way. If I enter into a conversation and there's authenticity there, and I can tell that you really care about me and my success, my trajectory in this organization first, I'm going to do more for you. Like I really am, because I can remember as a classroom teacher, those principals or those superintendents or directors or whoever that walked through my classroom and genuinely came over to me and said hi. I can remember them. And I can also equally remember those that walked by me and didn't smile. And so there are all kinds of, people in every organization. And so I want to be the person that is able to connect with people first. And then let's talk about the work second, because the heavy cognitive lifting of planning lessons and setting design, organizational structures, the curriculum, the assessments that we need to revisit and really analyze data is going to happen because we've already established that team. And so for me, connecting with people is core value, like for me internally, number one, and then also supporting them in that journey. And so I don't ask people to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. So if I'm asking them to plan lessons and design them and to make sure that the learning target is there, I need to know how that is. And I do it with them. I'm still a superintendent that walks the talk. And so I still teach teachers. So I'll deliver in professional development on the weekends, after school. If if we got substitutes and they come in, I still do that because I love it. I'm a teacher at heart. And when I pop into lessons, engaging in classrooms, engaging with students and taking over a lesson is something that's common as well. So that's kind of the way you prove to your organization, not by what I say, but what I do. That matters is the difference.
Yeah. And I guess this, like the same with kids, right? This notion that the stronger the relationship, the less they challenge and the harder they work, right? That we want to support each other. We want to please each other, and we're all wired to want to do well, and succeed. So I love the, opening, what's the barrier to more heart in schools? I'm just curious, it seems like it could be such a no-brainer, that we're wired to connect, that we're wired for belonging, that we're wired for love. And still there's, right, we seem to have a disconnect. What's your experience of what's in the way?
What's in the way? I would probably say time. Time is in the way is always the number one reason that people will say, well, how come you haven't done this? Or, well, I don't have time for that. So then in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so where is your time going? And so we need to rewire our brain on what's important in life. And for me, what's important to me is being in front of kids. What's important to me is to understand what my teachers and my staff need, because that influences the decisions that we make at a board meeting. It's the decisions that we make at when we write a plan to know where the money's going to go. All of that absolutely matters, because if we're making decisions about things absent of who it's going to impact, then we're not in the right business. When you look at a plan and where dollars are allocated, you learn truly where a district and an organization holds their priorities. And so for us in Greenfield, everything that is in our local control accountability plan here in California is all rooted in how close can we get to kids. We have them, taking them on field trips to university every single school year. We have community and family liaisons there so that the families know who to go to. We have school counselors and social workers to help support them with the trauma. We have allocated funds to be able to do celebrations for kids, in addition to all the books and the resources that we want to purchase for them to be able to make their mastery with academic standards. And so all of that is what truly allows you to lead and not forget, what our mission is. And so time is that controller. We put everything on our calendar. I have a meeting with the mayor. I have a meeting with the county office. I have a meeting with, this organization. So what we need to put on there is allocation time for kid talk and staff talk.
Yeah.
You'll never cancel on the mayor, and you would never cancel on the state superintendent. So why would you cancel on a kid or a team member? So that's what I think is in the way of it, not allocating the time and making a dedicated commitment to just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Time. Yeah. And you're not the first leader who's brought up this essence of calendaring, right? As simple as it can sound, that it's commitment. It's full commitment. I love the analogy when we take ourselves to task and notice, what do we cancel on? Even ourselves, right? We're like, oh, I'm too tired to get up to do that workout, or don't have time to make the healthy meal, and sort of where we set ourselves up, short, really, essentially.
Yeah. For
so
sure.
This notion of belonging, it just reminded me. And so I wanted to kind of ask about this. This past weekend, I was, training some staff, and they were talking about kids wanting like help with the homework when they didn't really need the homework, or, asking for help. And it was reminding me, I have a 6-year-old daughter who says like, I need some help getting changed, right? When she obviously doesn't. So we started really looking at when we talk about belonging, it's not that kids are always expressing that they just want company, right? It sounds like I need help, or I can't do this. And so it's been really unearthing of how our kids might not be expressing, and even adults, that what I really want is connection and company and conversation. And I'm not necessarily going to be able to articulate that or own that. And I don't maybe even know that. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I was reaching for a book because what you're talking about, well, I have a few books back there, but you're absolutely right. So what your daughter is saying is, Mommy, I want time with you.
Yeah.
She's saying like, I don't really need the help to put it on, but I want to be next to you because it's kind of cool to be with you, right?
Right.
And so when we think of that, like you can think of like on the top of your list, like just listing on a piece of paper, 5 people that just lift you up and make you feel almighty powerful. And if you identify those 5 people, and then you look at the characteristics of those 5, they make me smile. They're fun. They lighten my load. They listen to me when I have a problem, and they make me feel better when I walk away. Like I come in hurt and I leave like just the life of the party because they reground me in my core purpose. And which leads me to our purpose-driven life, right? Mm-hmm. How do you live your best life knowing that you need those supports and you need that human connection to be able to make it happen? And so I pulled a book. I'm going to, right here, I'm a Fight On USC Trojan, Southern California. And in one of my courses, we're reading this book by Sean Aker, and he's the happiness guy, all about that. And this is called Big Potential, how transforming the pursuit of success raises achievement, raises happiness, and it raises your well-being. Like this is a book that we're reading in one of our courses, but grounded in it is, how do I help others to lift? Because when I lift others, I then am lifting myself in assuring that I'm meeting their needs. And so it's like that twofold. I give you the smile, the support, the love, because I genuinely want to do that. But then it comes back to me because I feel really good about helping you. And so that human connection is just underrated. It's underrated. When it comes to that, because that sense of belonging, mattering is so important. Like I need to know that I matter in your life, and you need to know that you matter in my life. And as we grow and get older, you know, I hit my 50 milestones. I've reached 50 years old, and you start thinking about life, and you
Yeah.
start thinking about how you spend your time. And when we were our 20-year-old self or our 30-year-old self, we might have said, you know what, all right, it's going to require some fake smiling, but okay, I'll go. Let's go, you know?
Right.
But that wasn't your true self. Like that didn't make you happy. And it was probably a waste of your time because you didn't gain anything and you did it for someone else, not for yourself, and to really support you in living your true self in your being. And so now, as you grow through life, you start thinking about time is special, time is valuable, and we don't have a lot of time left on this world, on this planet. And so, how do we use that time so that I give what needs to be give? I leave a heart print on you, not necessarily a footprint, but a heart print, right, on you, that when I leave that moment and I leave you, it's going to have an impact on you. And so that's kind of how I live my life now. And these 5 people that I list right away are the people that I choose to call and spend my time with. And then if you listed on another list, those 5 people that kind of, you know, are Debbie Downers, or just they don't bring you life, and you go into a conversation and all they do is complain. I don't want to spend time in that sense, because that's not going to help us serve. And all of this with big potential is about, how do you support others? How do you make an impact? How do you make sure that what you do is truly making a difference in the lives of others through kindness, through happiness? Because what then ends up happening, it transforms your work life. When I come to work happy, my organization is thriving. Yeah. Because the leader is good. The leader is grounded and centered and balanced in order to serve others. And therefore, my impact is grand. It's at a larger scale, because I never forget my level of influence is a really big deal when leading an organization, no matter what that is.
Yeah, I could feel that. I'm like, okay, everyone. Like,
I'm making the list right now.
Go do something. Right. So,
yes.
So for both yourself and your staff, you know, you've mentioned, you know, some of the work and your continuous studies and your doctorate and all these things, right? That you're a continuous learner. How do you keep yourself inspired? How do you keep your, you know, staff inspired? What are some of the messages that you really lean into to support them in this, you know, daunting, resilient, transformational time in education?
Yes. So no matter who you are, no matter where you are, take a moment to understand that you need to put your mask on first before you help others. And so what does that mean? It means take care of yourself and make sure that you're balanced. And that can mean different things. If you are an exerciser, just move naturally. You don't need to, you know, run a marathon, but just get up and take a walk. Listen to some music. Those kinds of things that will allow you to bring your best self to the work that you lead. And so it can take the shape of going on a walk in the morning. It could be listening to a podcast. It could be reading a book. It could be exercising. It could be spending time with your family, reading a story with your child, any of those things. So I would, again, like we put the list of the 5 people, make a list of 5 things that really bring you joy. What are those 5 things that bring you joy in your life? And then ask yourself, why aren't I doing them? Because if I did them, everything else shifts. If I get to do these 5 things that make my heart happy and make me just on cloud 9, then why wouldn't I be doing them? And then we find out why. It's that prioritization and the time. And then we need to reprioritize and do the time thing, because if I don't give myself an opportunity to do these 5 things, then I'm not going to be my best self. And so for me, if I had to tell you what those 5 things are, it's dancing. I love to dance, which is why I exercise, because I find dance videos of like Zumba. Being in classrooms with kids is a huge one. So that's going to make me happy. If that makes you happy, do it. Like, don't let anyone take away your joy, right? The third one is family time. Like, I'm always making sure that I prioritize family, because if I know if my family's good, then I'm okay to do the things that I do. Number 4 is human connection on all levels. So that means, how do I connect with my staff family here? So how am I saying hello? How am I creating events? Next Wednesday, we're having a huge staff party. You know, we're taking them off site to a really great venue. We're going to feed them. We're going to do dancing with them. We're going to do karaoke. We're going to give away like awesome prizes. Why? Because we want them to smile and have joy in their life. So those are, you know, 4 things that we do, but we do it with huge intentionality to make sure that we're making people happy. Yeah. So that's my advice: is find out what that is that brings you joy.
Yeah, and it's refreshing, you know, that the science is really there, you know, to
Yeah.
support. Yes, we get to feel well. Yes, right. Then there's ease and there's you know, support. Like the brain functions more easily and more integrated and more coherent when we get these things. And for so long it seemed that we felt like, well, who am I to take this time off or to take time for me, right? Things need to
Yeah.
happen in the world. And so what a refreshing place that we're meeting, you know, the science and well-being that we get to kind of shift. So
Yeah.
last couple of things here, but I'd love to hear, are there some, you know, big things that during the past 2 years, the opportunities that you think COVID showed us that maybe we wouldn't have seen, you know, in that time period that almost essentially happened for the field to move us forward more quickly?
Yeah, so I would just say one of the things for sure is to ask first and then do second. So always ask people how they're doing, how are their needs being met. And so that can go anywhere. It's like, does the home have books in their hand? Do they have the technology that they need? Do they have the Wi-Fi connectability? Did our teachers feel valued? If they were feeling kind of bummed out with certain things, how are we able to support them? And so first and foremost is just the ask first, do second. Like I never make decisions at my desk or at our school board dais without making sure that it's grounded in some research. And so that's really important. And so we no longer can make decisions for people. We need to make those decisions with people. And so that was a huge lesson learned, is that when you engage people at that level, it allows you to really know what the need is. Yeah, so that was definitely a lesson learned. I think the other thing, lessons learned as we move forward, is making sure that we amplify student voice, really amplify the student voice by making sure they have a forum to share what's happening with them, even still today, the results of being on, you know, pandemic and shelter in place did a lot of things to them. And so it's so important, pre-pandemic and post, what are we doing to make sure that we're responding to student voice? Because when we look at data and we say, you know, 30% of your kids are performing at or above grade level, or, you know, 10% are performing at or above, that doesn't mean anything unless you talk to the kid and tell me why you haven't made that jump. Like, why aren't you progressing? And then we learn about the trauma. And then we learn about the family situation. And then we learn that they haven't been eating, you know, for days and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. Humanizing data, increasing student voice is a huge lesson learned. So knowing that we need to make sure that we listen, you know, lean in and listen so that then those decisions are made, need to also be grounded in student voice. And then another big thing I would say on a positive note is the celebrations. Like, we genuinely missed people a lot. Every time I talk to a parent, they're like, when is school going to open again? I'm like, I know, we're just waiting for the cases to go down. I saw a teacher like, oh my God, how are we going to roll out the red carpet and put balloons everywhere and music when our kids come back for that first day? No one will ever forget our first day back on campus. No one. Why? Because it was the feeling you felt when reconnecting with people for the first time after missing them. It's like, you know, on a boat, right? When the Navy man comes back and he sees his wife on the shore and they run for the first time. It's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you forever. That was the feeling we felt upon returning to school. And so I tell you all that because we need to continue to celebrate people. A big lesson learned is amplify your people on social media, amplify your people through celebrations, events, every milestone that's made on a school campus, in an organization of any sort, because when people feel valued, when they feel, I'm gonna circle back to the beginning, human connection, their relationship, and they know that you care about them because you're really tapping into your emotional intelligence, you're going to have a really great organization that people feel valued in, and they will stay for years.
Yeah, so powerful. That, you know, the notion of maximizing opportunity, right? And creating the moment, you know, the power of moments, you know, and
Yes.
and capitalizing on that, not just moving through. It's so beautiful. So, in closing, any resources or suggestions for your fellow leaders and teachers of things to keep them, you know, in the field and inspired and doing the work that I know we all came into this field because of the joy that we feel, you know, in working with
Oh,
kids.
absolutely. I'll go back to this book as a simple read. I mean, you can get it
Yeah.
on Audible or whatever, but The Big Potential is just a beautiful book. New York best-selling author, you know, Sean Aker, but what he talks about in here just brings you joy. And he's got a few other books, but I'm reading this one now, and I always encourage everyone to stay sharp with what you're reading. And I would encourage that. And I would encourage people to surf the podcast network. I have a Spotify, of course, and so I send out, you know, playlists to my team and to my teachers and educators. Find a really great podcast on Spotify or on Apple. Yours would be amazing, Trish, if they bookmark that, because we know you're going to have such joyful speakers on your kind of schedule, so that then as you're driving somewhere and you're listening, just the power of words and motivation from people just really transform a person. And it has the power of just completely shifting your mindset. If you're having a bad day, listening in on a podcast that's really great, or a book, can really transform your mindset in a positive manner.
I love it. I love it. Well, Zandra, thank you so, so, so much. And on this day, carving out time for all of us, I'm so grateful for your time. I'm so inspired by your leadership, and look forward to following more. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining in. Join us tomorrow and check out Sean's book and certainly Zandra's work in Greenfield Union. Thank you, everyone, for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.